So let's talk about a topic that's not really popular right now, and that's the recently released Windows 10s. And Microsoft seems to have not got the hint. There are two reasons why Microsoft is currently very popular still. And Microsoft seems to have forgotten why it's popular. For some odd reason, Microsoft thinks that by creating a default operating system that can compete like the Google Chromebook, it can begin to recuperate the many losses that it's had from all the choices that it's made. The problem is that decision is absolutely moronic. I'm sorry, I love Microsoft. I honestly like Microsoft because it's a very easy to use operating system, and really the constant reason as to why I keep my Microsoft is because of the .exe. However, if you've noticed, what's on my desktop is not Windows 10s or Windows 10, and definitely not the nightmare that was created called Windows 8, but Windows 7. And the reason why Windows 7 is currently my operating system is because Windows 7 is the last time that Microsoft really wasn't a dick. And I have to say that, because Windows 7, with all of its problems, was still not trying to be a dick. Yes, there were some problems that you had with it, and occasionally you would come up with bugs, and, but it was the last time where Microsoft could truly claim they're not trying to be a douchebag. Windows 8 completely changed that. We began seeing Microsoft head down a very bad road. And that was because they changed the interface of the layout completely. And to be honest, layout interfaces is not a problem. The underlying issue was that many of the tools that us developers had access to, that businesses had access to, were completely removed or renamed in Windows 8. And then with Windows 10, it all became about the PowerShell and how you didn't need to do as much in Windows because Cortana would handle everything for you. And don't mind the fact that we're spying on you worse than the NSA could ever do. Don't worry about that fact because, you know what, we got you. We'll take your information as exchange for making your life easy, And that was like the very first, those two were the very first signs that Windows and the Microsoft in general is starting to be a douchebag. And then we get something like Windows 10s. And Microsoft, you're gonna die. You're gonna die as a company. You're not. With Windows 10, it should have become very abundantly clear what people want out of an operating system. And that is not to close you out from installing all the different stuff on an operating system. You're gonna charge people $50. You honestly think that it's reasonable to charge people $50 to do something on something they have been able to do since every single operating system before it? You honestly think that's acceptable? The sheer gall that this company has is going to destroy it. There are two reasons why Windows still exists as an operating system and why they haven't been conquered by Linux or Mac, and that is the .exe. That is the single most reason why Windows isn't dead. It's because of the popularity of the .exe. If it wasn't for the fact that people could easily run .exes inside of Linux, people would no longer install Windows. If it wasn't for the fact that most big businesses automatically install Windows on the computer systems because of its simplicity, so that users can use it and transfer between operating systems relatively easy, people would not even buy Windows machines. More and more people are starting to realize how much of a douchebag Microsoft is becoming. And as Microsoft attempts to monopolize its software in a vain attempt to get everyone onto its store, because it wants everyone to install stuff on its store, because it wants to be a Microsoft copy of what Google is doing, because what Google is doing is working really well. Stop it, Microsoft. Stop it. Just fucking quit it. It is angering every single developer. Every single one of them. And the ones that aren't getting angry, I know that I said every single developer, but there are still a few developers that aren't getting angry. And to be perfectly honest, those are the developers that are really only working in Microsoft languages or are using Microsoft architecture. Anyone outside of that scope has begun to disdain and hate Microsoft even more. Right now, most developers have what's known as a dual boot. It's where they share a portion. Of what they want Linux to run, and then they have another portion that runs Windows. Because we have the ability to build our hardware, and Microsoft cannot stop manufacturers from selling their parts to everyone else. They cannot just completely own the market. If they did, we'd all be in really big trouble, and there would be a huge stagnation of software. Judging based on Windows' current mood, there would be a huge stagnation of software in the industry. Windows, Microsoft, you need to stop. People have been trying to tell you, all you need to do is do what you were doing in 7, but better. That's it. Be more open. Be more flexible. Have less problems. That's what the consumer wants from you, is for you to be an operating system that doesn't suck. Okay? The reason why so many people held on to Windows XP is because after Windows XP, you came out with things like Vista and things that just literally, you might as well just chuck them in the garbage because they were complete garbage. And if it wasn't for the fact that Microsoft was so strong back then, they would not have seen any sales for those operating systems because Linux was much better. Linux had all your features in the past, way before you decided to implement them. And if it wasn't for your crooked methods in installing different barriers to prevent people from going over to things that they would want to go over to, your company would have died a long time ago. I mean, there have been several attempts to prevent people from leaving your operating system. You are so maniacally controlling that it's become ridiculous, and you wonder why your company is starting to falter and fail. You decided to develop a BIOS system called the UEMI that completely locks the user out of the motherboard on laptops so that you could prevent people from installing other operating systems on your laptop. You decided to do that. Because I can sure as hell say that most of the people who make the hardware only wanted to do business with you because you are a giant company and because they know that Windows sells. And then this Windows 10s. There are a lot of problems with Windows 10. But then you come out with something like Windows 10s. And as I said, there are 2 reasons why Windows is still popular. One, it's simple and easy to use, and it's been with us for generations. What we remember using in Windows Vista, we can usually use in Windows 7, and sometimes use in Windows 8, and even less in Windows 10. And if you notice, you got really popular with Windows 7, because you went from a crappy operating system that slowed down systems to an operating system that focused on hardware and improving the speeds that you could achieve in the operating system, and focused on the bugs, and just, you kept the same operating system user interface. You didn't change the user interface at all. You didn't change it. Instead, you made it better. And if you notice, with Vista and 7, once you made it better, everybody loved it. Everybody wanted to install it. And then Windows 8 wasn't as popular as Windows 7. But people were giving it a chance, because they understand that sometimes the user interface needs to change, and sometimes you need to lose some control. So they accepted Windows 8. And then you came out with Windows 10, and people started beta testing Windows 10. And the amount of people that are currently using Windows 10 is so desperately low in comparison to Windows 7. I think the number is, there are like 53% Windows 7 users, and still only like 40% Windows 10 users. And this is an operating system that you gave away for free. You need to think about that for a moment. You gave this operating system away for free, and most of the people are still using Windows 7. And then you decided to come out with a Windows 10 that was even more controlling than Windows 10. The insanity of what you're doing right now absolutely boggles my mind. I do not understand why you're taking this path, Microsoft. It is only when you develop operating systems that are more open, that have more control, and that have more privileges, do you become more popular as an operating system. If you look at XP versus ME, there's a lot more optimization and control in XP over ME. XP was one of the biggest operating systems to be sold. And then you decided to come out with ME, and then you decided to come out with Vista, and then you know, whatever you came out in between there, and then you came out with 7. And Vista was a different user interface and, you know, different added features to make it look nice and pretty. And then the previous one was all about me, the millennial, and you were trying to sell to the new people who were buying computers. And it wasn't really about optimization. It was all about the user experience. And, you know, it wasn't really, you know, built for developers. It wasn't really built for the high-end extensive people because, well, the higher complex stuff that you got into, the more problems you had with ME. And if you notice the trend, you know, with XP, people used XP to run servers. They used XP to run servers because it was so damn optimized. And so you had XP as one of the largest explosions we have ever seen in an operating system. And then ME just completely crashed. And then Windows Vista completely crashed. And those are because you didn't focus on optimization and smooth running and control. And then Windows 7, you finally focused on smooth operations and optimization. And it exploded again. And then you went back to your user interface crud, and it's like you can't get it into your head that the people who are wanting to buy Windows want to buy it because of control, ease of use, and speed. That's what they want to buy it for. Stop trying to change the user interface. Stop trying to make it inflexible like Google is, because they currently own a large portion of the market and you want to be like them. Stop trying to be like another company. Own your own software, make it better, and make it flexible, and make it so that it's a hard choice to leap to Linux and Mac, who even though they have their problems, are still way more open to software than you are. Just stop it, Microsoft. This needs to stop.